Hello and welcome to the Schola Progenium. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the shock assault rule and praise the Emperor, what a rule it is. Basically today is a great day to be alive. If you are a Blood Angels player or a Space Marine player in general, but a Blood Angels player especially, our army and the way we fight just became insanely powerful. And I can't get my head around how good this rule is going to be. Before making this video, I've gone through my codex and flicked through it, looked at every unit just to sort of see how this new rule will affect each unit, and it just got better and better. Some of the stuff I've come across, some of the stuff I've come up with is just broken level good. It is so exciting. So what is the shock assault rule? Well, essentially, on Warhammer Community, Games Workshop have said that they want Space Marines to sort of act how they are in the fluff, in the lore, which is brutal infantry shock assault units. And, if you've read the Horus Heresy books, I've read two myself and they're absolutely excellent. I highly recommend them. Or if you've really read any Black Library material that features Space Marines, when they get into sort of close quarters combat, not necessarily close combat, but close quarters combat, they are absolutely brutally powerful, and they just overwhelm and tear apart any conventional infantry, say they're attacking rebels or trying to bring a world into compliance and they're just fighting normal men, even with good equipment. They just tear through them as soon as they get into their lines. But on the tabletop, because of all the fancy different models and rules, and because of all the different factions that exist these days, obviously tactical marines and space marines in general, they seem a bit lackluster. They're not that scary compared to how they are in the fluff. So I think it's really, really, really cool that Games Workshop have consistently tried to make tactical marines more, and space marines in general, just more cool on the tabletop and more in line with how they would be in the lore. So they've done the Bolter Discipline rule. Of course, we've always had the And They Shall Know No Fear. And now combined with this, they have a third universal special rule called Shock Assault. And it says this: the Adepts Astartes are elite shock troops who strike with the fury of a thunderbolt. Few opponents can withstand this onslaught. If this unit makes a charge move, is charged, or performs a heroic intervention, add 1 to the attack characteristic of models in this unit until the end of this turn. Now, adding 1 to the attack characteristic in general just makes your standard tactical marine and your standard Adeptus Astartes force a bit better. It makes all your characters that little bit better because they're now getting an extra attack, and your characters will always have their special weapons, weapon skill 2, that kind of thing. So, it makes everyone just that little bit better. But it makes me really excited as a Blood Angels player because I'm just thinking of the way we play and our sort of tactics. It's just going to make mass infantry sort of Blood Angels assaults with loads of specialist infantry like Death Company, Sanguinary Guard, and our characters that are already so insane that you rarely see an Imperial Soup list on the competitive scene without at least a couple of Smash Captains and a Librarian or something like that. Librarian Dreadnought. It makes them even more powerful, even better at hunting down knights, even better at hunting down custodies, that kind of thing. So it's just really, really good for Blood Angels. So what I'll do now is I'll just very briefly go through a few of the units, a few of the combinations that I've sort of thought up immediately on the spot whilst sort of considering this rule. Looking at the HQ units, the first thing that I'd say is I think now Mephiston is possibly slightly more powerful than a Librarian Dreadnought. Now, it's a toss-up between the two of them because only one can cast Wings of Sanguinius a turn if you were to take both. So most people take one or the other. And I think most people settle on the Librarian Dread because he's got that flat damage instead of D3 damage that Mephiston has on his sword. The Librarian Dread has a flat 3 damage on his halberd. So he's a bit more reliable. But Mephiston can cast an extra psychic power a turn. And I think now looking with this shock assault rule, you'll really want that extra psychic power because you'll really want to be able to cast Unleash Rage on another unit near Mephiston, as well as Wings of Sanguinius to climb up the field. and quickening to give him plus D3 extra attacks and plus 3 inches on his charge and advance rolls. So you'll want to give him that extra, be able to cast that extra psychic power so you can give another unit an additional attack. You can really have an insane number of attacks on some units in your army. So combining it all together, you're really just squeezing as much juice as you can out of combining these special rules together. So, and of course, Mephiston has a base flat of 4 attacks, whereas the Lucky Dread only has 3. Now, Mephiston, when he charges, will have 5 attacks on the charge. Strength 5 base, double 2 for times 2 for his sword. So strength 10 with the Blood Angel's ability of always wounding on +1 in close combat. He's going to be wounding almost anything on 2s. You can wound knights on 2s because you wound them on 3s normally down to 2s. Only do 3 damage on his sword, but I mean, does that really matter? He now has 5 attacks base. He can go up to 8 attacks potentially with a good roll and probably get an average of 7 attacks if he casts the psychic power on himself. So he's going to be insane. And Libby Dread, isn't that much far behind. He will have 6 attacks base if he casts a psychic power on himself. So you're looking at some insane output. And with that +1 to wound that Blood Angels have anyway, these units are just combining together beautifully. You've also got Commander Dante. Now, Commander Dante is a chapter master, so he allows re-roll fail hits for all Blood Angels units within 6 inches. So if he's just there, you don't need a chaplain or anything like that. But he's not even the best sort of combination that we've got. Now you've got your Smash Captain. That +1 attack is just ramping him up even further, even more powerful than other assault units in the game and other close combat characters in the game. The Smash Captain now with that +1 attack, if you've given him the Warlord trait, that gives him +1 damage on his Thunderhammer, then he's going to have 4 flat damage on his Thunderhammer. He's going to have 5 attacks on the charge going in. If you spend the stratagem to give him the Black Rage at the start of the game, you'll have 6 attacks base going in. If you spend command points to give him an extra D3 attacks with the stratagem, then on average you'll get 2 extra attacks. So you're getting 8 attacks on the charge. If you spend 3 command points to honor the chapter, he can even strike twice. That's 16 attacks coming in, hitting on. If you've given him the Hammer of Baal relic and given the Wings of Sanguinis to another Smash Captain, then he will not be having a minus hits, he'll be hitting on 2s. So that will be 16 attacks over the course of 2 rounds of combat. Hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s, there's a good chance we get 16 hits. If you're hitting against a knight, you'll be wounding on 4s normally because strength 8, but down to 3s. So you'll probably get about 12 to 11 wounds through. That knight, even if he's got 4 invuln save and he gets lucky, will still get 5 wounds go through, 5 unsuccessful saves. And he will take, if it's a flat 4 damage, 20 wounds. You'll have to invest a lot of command points in that. But if you go with an army that's got, a decent amount of command points, that one character can do 20 wounds to a knight, just bang, potentially more if you get lucky and they get unlucky. And that's one character. So it's just, just absolutely insane. We already knew Smash Captains were insane, but this +1 attack just makes them just even better. It's so good. It's so, so good. But basically, you've got loads of combinations with your characters because you've also got Sanguinary Priests and Brother Corbulo. And Brother Corbulo has the Red Grail. That means 6s, give you an extra attack. Now, because you've got that many more attacks, it's worth taking as many close combat buffs as you can. So because you've just got that many more attacks, you're going to be buffing that many more dice rolls. And it's a numbers game. 40k is very much a numbers game. The more dice you roll, the better chance you have of success. And bad luck and good luck fades away the more dice you have, because you'll have some good luck, but you'll have some bad luck because you're rolling, quite a lot of dice. It just seems to balance out a lot more. Just sort of waters down sort of the feel of good and bad luck. So with that in mind, having the extra attack just means that you will be, if you are adding in loads and loads and loads of close combat buffs, you are just going to be squeezing all of the juice out of your units, all of the juice out of those buffs. Those buffs are affecting so many more attacks. All the juice out of that shock assault rule, because all those attacks are getting so many more buffs. And it's just going to be insane. We need to combine together as many buffs in our army as possible and just get into close combat as quick as possible with as many units as possible and power as many close combat attacks as possible. So it's going to be absolutely insane. So moving on from the characters, obviously you can also, with any of your psychic characters, cast Unleash Rage. Now, Unleash Rage gives one unit within 12 inches an extra attack. Now, let's look at our elite units. Now, the first thing I want to look at here is the Death Company. Now, the Death Company, already your average guy with a chainsword gets 4 attacks when he goes in on the charge. A Death Company model has 2 attacks on the charge. A chainsword gives you +1 attack, and the Black Rage ability gives you +1 attack. So that's 4 attacks on the charge. With the Shock Assault, you are going up to 5 attacks on the charge. Hitting on 3s, more than likely wounding on 3s or 2s if you're fighting against other infantry, because you've got your Blood Angels +1 to wound. Now, that's a lot of attacks, but let's take it up a notch. If you have the Sanguinor, now he's not that common a character, but he is pretty good. But he gives +1 attack to friendly Blood Angels units within 6 inches. So what you can do with the Sanguinor is you can get your average Death Company model up to 6 attacks on the charge. Now, if you cast Unleash Rage on a Death Company unit, so let's say you've got 15 Death Company there, and you've got, let's say, 5 power weapons and, Thunderhammers, power swords, and you've got 10 normal chainsword guys. And they drop in, and you 3d6 them into the charge. And you've got Sanguinor placed down there already, and he's within 6 inches of them, and you cast Unleash Rage on them as well. You'll be getting 7 attacks per chainsword model, which means if you get all 10 in, you don't lose any on Overwatch. That's 70 attacks on the charge for adding in the Sanguinor and casting Unleash Rage on them. And that's why I think Meta is going to be really powerful, just to go back a step to what I mentioned earlier. Because getting that Unleash Rage off on a unit of Death Company that's now getting this Shock Assault boost, if you then tie in a Chaplain with that, so you're re-rolling, or you've got a Priest that gives you +1 strength, so you're strength 5, or you've got Corbulo, that means you've got 70 attacks, 6s give you an extra attack, and you've got a Chaplain in there that's giving you re-rolls on your misses, and you're hitting on 3s anyway, or you've even just got a Smash Captain in there that's just letting you re-roll 1s, you're going to get a lot of 6s out of those 70 attacks, and that's just 10 guys, and then you will re-roll your misses, and you'll get some more 6s, and that'll give you more attacks. All those 6s are extra attacks, then you roll those as well, and all those extra attacks also get buffs. So a huge blob of Death Company with like some decent characters backing them up, giving them extra attacks, re-rolls, all of these things. It's just going to put out just so many attacks. It's going to be the sort of, how Venoms use, Venom spam with loads and loads of splinter cannons and splinter rifles. It's like the close combat version of that, but so much more brutal. You're going to be wounding on 3s or 2s against most infantry. You're just going to absolutely swallow things up. Gene Stealers, having a big blob of Gene Stealers is going to be nothing on a big blob of Death Company now. Gene Stealers are dangerous and they can chop through Death Company, and they've got that 5 up invent. And they can cast that psychic power that increases their invent if they're on a 4 up. But with a Death Company unit going in, striking, if you use Honor the Chapter on them, then 10 guys, without even looking at your power weapons, 10 guys would put out 140 attacks minimum in a round of combat. And if you had Corbulo in there, any 6s would be giving you extra attacks, not extra hits. That's important to say. So you have to roll to hit, but extra attacks. So if you've got a Chaplain in there as well, or someone else that gives you re-rolls to hit, you're going to be getting, and you spend 3 command points to get Honor the Chapter. That is going to be absolutely insane. 140 attacks, re-rolling misses, 6s give you extra attacks. just +1 to wound. It's just insane. And then you've got your power weapons as well. And that brings me on to power weapons. With the shock assault rule, power weapons are now just great value. You can't really go wrong with a power weapon now. Before, power weapons, it's useful to take a power weapon. If you've got a few spare points, take a little power weapon. Maybe it's sort of the equivalent of slightly more expensive of taking a storm bolt. If you've got a few spare points, nothing really worth sort of trimming a unit or taking another unit or anything like that, you could always buy a power weapon. But power weapons are now really valid. If you take power weapons on your general, just your tactical marine sergeants, your Primaris intercessors, they can take, I believe, a power weapon or maybe a power fist. But all these things has become a good bargain because if you charge in or if you get charged, you've got +1 attack. And that just makes people hesitate before charging you. If they think, I'll just try and charge that standard unit of Marines or any unit of Marines, +1 attack. If you've got a power fist in there, or if you've got a power axe in there, that's an extra attack. Your sergeant will be putting out 3 attacks. Let's say you've got a power sword and you're a Blood Angels, just a standard Blood Angels tactical Marine unit, 5 guys just sat on a little objective. Even an enemy, a decent, like let's say 10 units of 10 men Necron warriors, they shoot into you, kill a couple of you, and then decide to charge the remaining guys. You're still putting out 2 attacks for your basic guys. And then your sergeant there will have 3 attacks with a power sword, hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s because he's got +1 to wound, and AP -3, so it's just going to chop through any standard infantry armor and they won't get an armor save. So, and against, it's just absolutely insane. All the combinations that you think of, it's just insane. This one little rule of +1 attack, it's just going to absolutely, it's a huge ripple effect because it just makes you so much more dangerous and it makes you so much more steady and sort of your units are just like tougher to remove because a lot of the time it's dangerous to attack them. If you just add in a few little trinkets here and there, a few power weapons sprinkled across your army, and just a few extra characters with extra buffs just sprinkled across your army, it makes counter-attacking your army so much more dangerous because your opponent really has to think twice. Do I want to counter-attack my opponent's lines to try and slow down their momentum? Because if I do, I'm running straight into a load of extra attacks now, just like double the amount of attacks. We are literally, your standard Space Marine is twice as powerful as before. And this sort of brings me on to my final thing. If you follow my channel for a while, you'll know about my pure infantry army. I'm a pure infantry Space Marines. And if you look at that list now, it's just absolutely crazy. 14 Death Company, with loads of re-rolls from chaplains, re-rolling ones to wound from a sanguinary ancient. The sanguinary ancient just got even better value because you've got so many more attacks going through that you're going to roll to wound more with more dice, which means you can get so many more ones, which means that you'll be able to re-roll all those ones to wound in close combat. So it's just absolutely insane. The more buff characters and the more little power weapons, cheap power weapons that you can sprinkle around your army, the more powerful your Marine army is going to be. And the more infantry you have just making use of this rule, the more powerful your army is going to be. If you have 30 tactical Marines or 30 intercessors, and every unit has just a power sword in it for 4 extra points, then those guys, when they charge into close combat, that's insane. They're just going to run forward. They're going to bolter stuff. They can stand still. They can bolter stuff. They can charge in. They can chop stuff up. You've just got so many options. If the enemy get too close, you can sort of stand still. If you've got a little castle, use the bolter rule to bolter them as they get close. And then when they get really close to your lines, let's say they fail a charge, then you can just counter-charge them. It makes it really dangerous for your enemy to get into sort of risky charge range. If your opponent is sort of dropping in 9 inches away from your lines or getting sort of 8 or 9 inches away from your lines and attempting charges and failing them, then the counter charge is just going to be brutal because you could just take 3 standard units of TAC Marines and just shoot in and then charge or move in and counter charge them. And you'll just absolutely butcher them in close combat because you're getting that many more attacks in close combat. And your power weapons are just going to dice stuff up and just add in that much more weight of specialist extra AP, putting through the armor, or extra strength, so you're wounding them on, a better probability of getting the wound through. So, that's basically it. That's what it's going to be all about. And this is what I see myself doing with my list. I'm sure this will happen everywhere over time, which is that we're just going to see a lot of infantry and sort of huge blobs of Blood Angels, specialist units like Death Company and Sanguinary Guard. Sanguinary Guard with the Heirs of Ascalon means they re-roll hits when they're within 6 inches of the Warlord. So if you've got your Warlord there, you drop them in with a big blob of 9 Sanguinary Guard, 10 Sanguinary Guard even. They're going to have 3 attacks each on the charge, all with those Encarmine axes and Encarmine swords. They're going to dice stuff up. They've got D3 damage per weapon. They've got AP -3 or AP -2. They've got extra strength depending on what they've got. They're wounding on +1. They're just absolutely going to tear stuff apart. Everything just got that much better. This isn't just +1 attack. This isn't just this little buff. When you think about the combinations that you can do in an army, if you take a lot of specialist elite infantry, you can just create some insane murder sort of death squads that will just tear enemy armies apart. You'll tear entire flanks apart. I'm going to be taking, loads of Death Company now, loads of Sanguinary Guard now. I already do, but I'm going to be keeping loads of infantry. I'm going to get my infantry army, pure infantry, back out on the field, and I'm going to be tearing people up with the bolt discipline rule, and I'm going to be tearing people apart in the attack with the shock assault rule. I'm really excited for this. I cannot wait to start filming some battle reports for you guys and start showing this rule off, because it is going to be absolutely insane with the Blood Angels. So, as you can tell, I'm really excited. Leave a comment below if you can think of any good combinations yourself. Or you've got any thoughts on this new rule. I hope you found this video interesting and entertaining. This has been the Schola Progenium. Thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.